This tutorial is going to be a bit different than normal because instead of showing you step by step about how I made it, I'm going to show you the final piece and go through how you should make this. Creating an infinite waterfall is really hard, especially when you're creating something non-Euclidean like this in a Euclidean world. I think that's the correct terminology. I'm not exactly sure. The reason I'm not doing it as one step-by-step tutorial is because I've started off like that, and then it turned out that I had no idea about how to actually make it, and I tried multiple ways, and eventually I got to this way, which I think is still not that good. So it just took way too long to do it the step-by-step way, so I'm just going to show you the final product, but I am going to go through it. So I started off with by creating just this this little basin where the water will go. I created it by creating just the inner shape by extruding a square. So I got the square, extruded it out, extruded it across, removed the top section, and then using a solidify modifier, I extended the walls. Then I set up the camera. So this is important. It's important to have the camera be orthographic, so have the orthographic setting. It doesn't matter from what orientation it is, as long as it's away. Kind of like, as you can see in Monument Valley. So this was my inspiration. Then once I did these two things, I had to get onto the main way of creating the water to go from the top to the bottom. And as you can see, it does some weird stuff to get there. Originally what I was going to do, and what I had doing, was the water to pour in here, and then fall off and down. I think I do have footage of that, and then pretend that more water was filling in here by spawning the water there, and then using a particle system to pretend that the water was landing in and making it wave. That didn't really work because I couldn't get the particle system to go interact with the water simulation, and it just didn't look natural or that good. I also thought about a way of teleporting the actual particles as they were to fall down there, and then teleport them here so they would land. But the problem with that is, as I don't have enough knowledge in Python to program that in, especially into a simulator, which is already probably a very complex program, so I have no idea. There's also the problem that in Blender, when you add two cubes which have a glass texture, when one goes inside the other, you can see them through, even though they're the same optical density, IOR. The only way to get rid of this is to connect them as a shape, which won't work for the simulation. So in that case, you'll end up that line in the water. Another way I was thinking of was actually have this section be above this, so it would actually fall in like a real waterfall. However, then it would have to connect at some point here, and then there will be an ugly seam. Or you can cheat by covering it by some form of structure, like they kind of do here in Monument Valley, even though here it's a drawing, so it doesn't even matter. So I ended up doing it this way, using forces and invisible tubes. Originally what I was gonna do was just use forces to move the water from here up and then down. What's important is that it were to move down as much as it possibly can here to look as if it's falling. And this is also why orthographic view is important, so that there's no vanishing points and you can't tell one distance from another. So then it looks like it's actually like this. What was I saying? Right, forces. So originally, what I was going to do is have the water come out and then go down using the forces. And so what I did in total for this was disable the gravity of the simulation completely. So gravity is disabled, and then using this plane here, there is a negative wind blowing down and pretending to be gravity, which holds the water in place. This means that this area here has zero gravity, and then using some forces and let me find it. And using this tube, I would direct the flow of the water. So this is the tube that directs the water inside, and it has its own force on it that's pushing the water that's close inside of it out. like that. However, this tube is not rendered, so it doesn't look like an abomination. There was also a problem originally when it was simply just forces that water would spray everywhere. And as you can see, it didn't perfectly work. There's still water spraying and then disappearing, especially here, right there. It's also extremely laggy. So what I ended up having to do was add a bunch of boxes that would kill any water particles that would leave. And it's a bit of a crude fix because I could just make it not spill over, but that turned out to be so difficult. It would be a lot easier if I did more simulations of this water. I did a lot of simulations for this water, more than my CPU could handle, but I think I should have done more just to get the water to be as good as possible, contain it more. As you can see, it's overflowing everywhere, and without the boxes it would have just been pouring out everywhere. Then finally, to finish it, I textured everything, and I textured this with just the default texture, but changed the color to be a bit more very light greeny bluey to fit, well, my inspiration of Monument Valley. Gave the water a transparent texture, but I kept the roughness up to make it look a lot more cartoony, blobby even, like slimy. And I also added if I turn off transparent fill, I used the new sky node to add lighting to it, as it gave a lot more natural lighting than the sky lamp, so that thing's completely useless now. And to finish it off, I composited it using this. So I denoised the image first using the denoise node, which people say it's not as good. I still love it, still use it. Then using alpha over and a texture, I just quickly created using the blend function and in quadratic sphere, and then color ramping it to create the background for the shot, which is also inspired by the Monuments Valley background. I even tried to copy the same colors. That didn't really work. Close enough. So yeah, that's how I created this abomination. There's probably better ways of doing it. There is better ways of doing it, and in the future more features will come out that will allow this to be a lot easier. I recommend other people try doing this and find a better way of doing it, because this is kind of an abomination. But that's what I made. Hope it looks okay. Thank you for watching. For the previous tutorial, I recorded everything in editing, but for this tutorial I recorded it while on Blender, and I'm never going to do that again, so you don't have to hear this stuttery mess that this tutorial has kind of ended up with, as I've realised while editing it.